021 to 025 synopses with no illustrations. Please note, for those interested, I am happy to provide text in Word 2010 of any clip for those requiring same. The first two clips, 021 primary affective stage and 022 secondary affective cognitive stages, describe the remaining overviews of child development. As stated many times previously, politicians in the three countries I have been involved in during my lifetime, UK, USA and New Zealand, have taken over education decision-making. I still have little idea, perhaps except for their love of power, why they would want to disempower teachers, etc. Improving education is a slow job and is best left to those that have been engaged at the coalface. If you want your country to decline, one of the quickest ways to achieve this is to remove educators' decision-making. The results are there to examine. Countries that are implementing different policies, and in particular decentralizing education, produce totally different results, with China as the outstanding example. If you had viewed the clips, you will find material, content and a structure that the writer, and he has spent over 50 plus years in education, believes will optimize students' well-being and learning. Basic to such optimization is that content and methodology needs to relate what is occurring in the brains of the student. It is not visionary or rocket science to realize that short-term memory recall indicates very little of students' real ability or capability. I failed all such tests at school and was regarded as less able, yet now possess 3 degrees, including PhD, author of many books, articles in professional journals, etc., etc. There are more than a few of us around, and I believe this testifies to the weaknesses of the present policies of the UK, USA and New Zealand. Later, clips describing why Shanghai possesses the top achieving students will be available, but we still need to lay and describe the groundwork, etc. In this respect, clips 023 to 030 are overviews of various aspects of our approach. Hopefully, the reader will appreciate that if we want to optimize students' learning, content and methodology needs to be in synchronicity and relate to hemispheric development, etc. 021 primary affective stage. This stage lasts from about 7 to 9 to 10. It is a period in which the affective qualities dominate the child's thinking. Children absorb new experiences by and through their ability to accommodate experiences into their imagination and fantasies. Their feeling life is paramount, and consequently theirs is a pictorial consciousness, one of images and pictures. The main process by which learning occurs has now passed from one of imitation to one of pictorial representation. So much learning in the classroom can be made less of a chore and therefore be much more efficient if content relates to this element in the child's nature. The multiplication tables are an obvious example of a learning process that should utilize the rhythmical aspect of the child's nature. See clip 008 teaching multiplication tables and clips 112 to 114 when available for examples, and many other examples can be found in other subject areas. Towards the end of this period, children pass through a significant stage of development. They begin to experience the difference between outer reality and their own inner experience of that reality. The child is confronted with a world which he has to adjust to, whereas before there was no separation of the outer world and his experience of it. It was with the shield of imagination and fantasy that children safeguarded the ways in which they dealt with the experiences of the outside world. This shield now has to be carefully dismantled so that they relate to themselves as subject and the outside world as object. It is crucial for children's growth that content and methodology relate to their mindset. If this occurs, the result will be a harmonious and balanced hemispheric development. On the other hand, if content and methodology emphasize, say, only left-hand brain activity, balanced hemispheric development will not occur. Sadly, the policies that the politicians UK, USA and New Zealand are implementing will have exactly the opposite results of what they intended. 022, the secondary affective stage. Children in this stage of development have to handle new experiences with different mental faculties and emotions from those they used at an earlier age. Earlier children would naturally absorb their interaction and emotional entanglements into their experiences through their ability to imagine or fantasize. They are now faced with the need to adjust both to the outside world and to their own feelings towards it. Therefore, it is not difficult to envisage why, at around the age of 10, children are particularly vulnerable. In part, therefore, the child appreciates for the first time that she is an individual who is quite different and unique from all other individuals. This adjustment needs careful handling, and from the point of view of education, the content of the curriculum has a crucial role to play. As the child nears puberty, the rhythmical age is fast disappearing, and by about the age of 12, the powers of discrimination have matured to the stage where children are capable of receiving and absorbing content at an intellectual level. This does not mean that they should be overwhelmed with academic content, and the transmission of intellectual content should still occur in an artistic way. It is only now with the birth of these cognitive faculties that children begin to understand and can therefore study in depth the inanimate world. The content of the curriculum would reflect this. The cognitive stage. At this stage, the child moves beyond a relationship with the world based on their feeling life to one in which the intellect dominates. It is no longer a time of acting simply out of the feeling realm. With the onset of puberty, the type of thinking changes to one containing elements of an abstract and intellectual kind. With the development of intellectual faculties, the relationship between child and teacher changes. It is now the adolescent develops his power of abstract thinking, and only at this point should the subject matter contain a logic that will appeal to the rational of the young person. In one sense, the authoritative role of the teacher of previous years is now superseded by the intrinsic worth of knowledge itself. Conclusion. An understanding of the 7-year stages and the subdivisions, with all that they imply, will help in understanding the growing child. One should, however, also learn to appreciate the subtle changes that are occurring as the child's consciousness becomes more awakened. This should be a gradual and gentle process. Although the changes are more noticeable in the long term, they occur continually and can be observed from season to season or even from month to month. 023 Overview Introduction. The approach we advocate to teaching children is an integrative approach. It seeks to bring about growth in children by accepting that different qualities should be developed in harmony and balance. It pays particular attention to the balanced growth of affective and cognitive faculties. In modern terminology, the development of the right-hand side of the brain as well as the left. Only when there is harmonious development can the whole being emerge. Previously, we described how there are 3 main stages of child development. We also described how content and curriculum must relate to the type of thinking and feeling that children possess at each stage, and that each main stage lasts approximately 7 years with certain subdivisions. Children in the first stage, that is up to about the age of 7, learn in a different way from both the primary school and the secondary school child. A great deal is learnt through imitation, and much content relates to the ability of children to engage in a whole variety of activities. There should be very little emphasis on cognitive development during this stage, the inner experience of children determining the structure and style of teaching. In the second stage, the development of the affective qualities is very important. The stage lasts from about 7 to around 14. At the lower end, children have to make a very big psychological adjustments as they move out of their own private experience into the outside world. Their thinking at this time is not like that of adults, and we should look upon them as possessing quite different experiences. Their thinking is pictorial, and the affective, imaginative and creative play a determining influence on their learning. After 14, the emphasis is on intellectual development and the way the adolescent adjusts and develops adult thinking. It is a time when the teenager finds his way into the adult world, initially with caution and insecurity, but gradually with confidence and assertiveness. If content and curriculum have related to different types of experience and consciousness through the stages, there should exist balance and harmony between cognitive and affective. The student will not only learn more, but will show a healthy curiosity to the world we live in. Unfortunately, the trend of modern education has been towards a one-sided cultivation of children's cognitive faculties. Unlike this approach, which almost views education as a science, our approach seeks to provide a co-education of the arts and the sciences. We believe that creative and artistic experience is not divorced from analytic and scientific thinking. Each subject in the curriculum is taught when the child is naturally receptive to it, and whatever is taught must be absorbed into natural rhythms that all children possess. It follows that teachers need to possess the eye of the true artist to relate subject matter to inner experience. 0 to 4 Overview Child Development. The 3 stages of child development relate to both mental and physical development and the relationship between the two. There exist clear physical indicators that children are moving out of one stage of development and into the next stage. The physical indicator of the child moving from the second to the third stage is puberty, and this is obviously well documented. The physical indicator that the child is moving from the first stage to the second stage is the change of teeth. Very little evidence and documentation exists on this physical change. 2 qualifications need to be made. The first is that there occur further subdivisions, and these will be described in other descriptions on child development. Secondly, we are going to describe the stages as separate from each other. It is obvious, however, that the child does not move from one stage to another overnight, so to speak. The changes occur gradually over long periods of time, some changes taking many months, some even longer. Let us consider the first 7 years period. The activities of the limbs of the baby and toddler surpasses anything the adult could aspire to. Practically every waking moment is filled with some kind of involvement. The first years of childhood, up until the change of teeth, can therefore be described primarily as the cycle of development concerned with will and not with thinking. Between the ages of 7 and 14, the emphasis moves from action to feeling. Primary school children think in a different way to adults. Their thinking is pictorial, uncritical, and unspecialized. They possess a rich inner life where imagination and feeling are the main factors influencing their thinking. It is not uncommon for children to express their opinions of life in terms of extremes of sympathies and antipathies. Healthy children of, say, 9 and 10 will act and judge continually on their likes and dislikes. The 7 years of the third stage is where the development of logical thought occurs, and it reaches its climate towards the end of this period, with students questioning the deepest and profound aspects of life. At or towards the end of the period, we recognize this development by respecting the right of the individual to judge quite independently the rights and wrongs of life in all its manifestations. Conclusion. A proper understanding of the 7-year cycles with all that they imply will help in understanding the growing child. We should also appreciate that teachers should not force results by causing or encouraging premature intellectual development, and that recognition of the stages and their turning points is fundamental to optimizing the well-being and learning of students. 0 to 5 Overview Rhythms Structure. All of us appreciate that it is better to have structure and rhythm in our lives, but adults, we realize it through their thinking and cognition, but children realize it instinctively. They want to receive during each day programs and structures that are appropriate for their daily rhythms. This should be extended into rhythms relevant for longer periods, from the week to the year. The task is to make each day into an organic whole. In order to achieve this, a carefully structured curriculum is implemented. Children are at their freshest in the early morning. Therefore, subjects that stimulate their thinking powers are taught then. The inbreeding of knowledge, so to speak. The academic subjects are followed by those in which some sort of rhythmic repetition may occur. The afternoon is devoted to those subjects where outbreathing can occur. Much creative and artistic work, but also other areas such as woodwork, gardening, and those which call for some kind of manual dexterity. Within each school day there occurs inbreathing, absorbing knowledge, and outbreathing, practical activity. Rhythms also have to be established within lessons. If headwork is given for too long a time, children tire, knowledge is not absorbed, and the learning process becomes a chore. However, if material relates to the feeling life and children express creative ability through some will activity, they are stimulated and refreshed. The act of forgetting is important. Western society concentrates on short-term memory recall. Subject matter is learned in order to pass an examination or test. Children who can reiterate knowledge quickly and efficiently are viewed as possessing high ability. Children who cannot do this are regarded as less able. However, we should also realize that forgetting has a place. Learning should be a similar process in that material should be adapted to the experience of children. For this to happen, they should be given time to absorb knowledge and ideas. If this happens in the right way, the right balance will occur between forgetting and remembering. They will not only learn content far more easily, but will be able to play